The place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Alrighty, folks, welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building a life without limits. And who better to have to talk to today than John Bush from the Live Free Academy and Exit and Build and all of the other endeavors that he does to talk about building a life without limits. I've been watching this man do this ever since I met him. You know, we met before we met, though, right?
When did we meet? And then when did we meet before we meet?
I think we met in Austin. I don't know the year, but you were living on Bitcoin only.
Okay. Must have been 2014, 2015.
Something around there. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. What's this Bitcoin thing? No idea. And then I met you for Unloose the Goose.
All right.
So you probably don't remember. I just remember because I think you're the only person I know who did that. So it had to be you at the time.
Cheers to Bitcoin.
Cheers. To Bitcoin. Do you know what I just found?
What? A whole Bitcoin in an old wallet.
AirBTC. Instead of Airbnb, it's AirBTC.
Oh, nice. Is that a website?
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, John.
I was thinking the other day of Airbnb free, and it's a directory just for our freedom community for people to stay. Airbnb free.
Are you going to put that together?
Being free. No, I need to learn to say no. I learned from your talks the importance of saying no.
Yeah. Yep. So guys, he's just thrown an idea out there for those of you who want to build a life without limits. Somebody else builds that site, lets us know, and then we'll put our properties on it.
Yep.
Right?
That's right.
That's funny because Brian from the Lots Project was trying to do that for camping, like RV camping.
Yeah.
And then I think he ran into a whole bunch of barriers to getting that done. So
there's always barriers.
There's always barriers no matter what you do. Okay, John, for the 7 people who don't know who you are, who's John Bush? And tell me one thing I don't know about you. I'm just interested.
Okay. I am a 41-year-old male who lives in Central Texas, a father of 2. I have a lovely wife named Rebecca. We have a 10-acre homestead with ducks, chickens, only 2 out of 8 quail remaining. Quail have been hard. They've been the hardest bird I've ever had to raise. Some gardens, a food forest, a pond, bees. Started a company a few years ago, 4 years ago now, called Live Free Academy. We help people to exit the beast system and build a better world with a focus on the areas of counter economy, trading outside the system, alternative currencies like crypto and precious metals, alternative investments, entrepreneurship, and then the other space that we're in is land and community. That has to do with leaving the cities, buying land, homesteading, becoming more prepared with an emphasis on building community, whether you buy land cooperatively with other people, or you just get connected and with your neighbors and encourage people to live in your area. So those are the 2 areas in my 22 years of freedom and conspiracy activism that I have found to be the most important when it comes to having greater independence and not being dependent on these centralized coercive systems. So lately I've been diving deeper into spirituality and self-development. And here's something that you may not know. When I first started getting deeper into connecting with Jesus Christ, I was really resonating with the whole Christ consciousness thing, which emanates from a lot of the New Age type thinking and even some Vedic and Hindu teaching as well. And that was awesome. And I still subscribe to that, the idea that we should align our energy, our consciousness with that of Jesus Christ, live like he lived. But it wasn't until I let go of that a little bit and stepped into more of a place of submission, because I like had issues with this whole Christ is Lord. And it's like, what does it mean to declare Jesus as Lord and Savior? Like, Lord, I'm a libertarian. That doesn't seem right. And I resisted that. I resisted the whole St. Paul line of thinking as well. But it wasn't until I kind of just like surrendered and submitted and quieted my ego and recognized that I don't have it all figured out. There is a higher power, and submission and surrender to this higher power will serve me in my life, that I really started bearing much more fruit as far as my walk with Jesus goes. So that's something that perhaps you didn't know.
That was something I was going to ask you about, actually. So you just like went straight into that. Because I've noticed you went from I want to learn about Jesus to, oh, I've learned something about Jesus to bring him into my heart. So how did that go down?
Well, I guess I'll be a little vulnerable here. I've been having trouble in one of my key relationships, one of the most important relationships, and also one of another important relationship, somebody that I worked with very, very closely for a long period of time. Lots of hardship in both of those relationships. And I was beginning to reflect on the role that I played in the trouble, which is something that I've never really had problems with because I've always adopted radical responsibility. And, but at that same time, not fully leaning in to acceptance and ownership. And so as I was deepening my relationship further with Christ, reading the Bible more, going to church more, I still had resistance to this idea of sin. Because I always felt like, okay, I can walk with Jesus and have compassion and forgive others. And there was a lot of anti-authoritarian bucking the established authority and status quo, right? Have a personal connection with God as opposed to going through the Pharisees and the Sadducees to connect with God. And so that was all great. But the whole sin thing, I was like, this seems like some sort of control paradigm that the churches are imparting upon people. And then also I was like, I'm not a sinner. I'm a great guy. I help people for a living, and I try to be a man of integrity. Well, there was one key thing that somebody shared with me about some pain that I had caused someone close to me. And because I had been reading scripture, going to church for the first time, I kind of like realized, wow, I'm a sinner. And this was like a really spiritual transformational moment for me. I'm kind of feeling some emotions coming up, just reflecting on it. I've reflected on it many times and shared it before because this was so powerful. It was like, oh shit, I've been sinning. And you know, when you look, the actual word sin means to miss the mark, and more so than a list of things, you know, thou shalt not A, B, C, D, and E. Those things represent a disconnection from God, not in alignment with God. And so, you know, Jesus said when asked what the most important commandments are, he said, well, there's two. One is to love God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. And the next is to love one another like you love yourself. And so the way that I was treating this person was not in alignment with what God teaches. And that's when I was like, oh my God, I'm a sinner. But instead of having shame and guilt, I immediately was like, well, I know what to do now. I need to pray to Jesus for forgiveness. And that I felt the forgiveness immediately. And then I went to church the following Sunday. And as soon as I walked in, they were singing a song. It's a non-denominational church. And they got the jam band, which is awesome. And the song was like, there will be a miracle. He will perform a miracle. And I was like, oh my God, I'm the miracle. He's performing a miracle in me, like for me right now, because I've been not a good person to this other person. I've been hurting them. And that was super powerful. And at the end, they invite folks to come pray with some of their prayer leaders. And I did that. And this gentleman prayed over me and told me, like, you don't even have to ask for forgiveness. You're already forgiven. And so, long story short, were I not already on the wavelength of forgiveness and connected with Jesus, I wouldn't have been able to receive that difficult feedback and harsh criticism. It wasn't even criticism. It was just feedback for me. I wouldn't have been able to receive it without my ego being completely quiet. And then since then, in reflecting and embodying and diving deeper into that phenomenon of forgiveness, I've been able to receive feedback without my ego seeking to defend, to deflect, to block and pivot, which is a mechanism many of us engage in, which makes it hard to have empathy for other people, because when they're giving us feedback, the first thing that we do is, that's not true, or, well, you do the same thing too, or, come on, it wasn't that bad. We're trying to defend ourselves. Even if we don't, and I've gotten to the point now where even if I don't fully agree with the other person's perception of how things actually took place, when that springs up in my mind, in the moment, I can quiet that and say, well, whether I believe that's exactly how it happened or not, that is their experience, and that has caused them some hurt. And that's okay. And I'm going to feel for them anyway. So that is just, this whole process has led me to be like, wow, there's really something to this whole Jesus thing. And I am damn grateful that I have allowed myself to dive deeper.
Yeah. And you're doing that 75 spiritual hard thing still, right?
Yeah, so we have a ministry of nature called Freedom Family Fellowship. It's a private realm, 508c1a. And my friend was doing this 75 hard challenge. Were you doing the 75 hard?
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah. Did you do the whole thing?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
It's
got
kind of
so
hard
tired
not
of water
to.
by the end of that.
Yeah, that's why. Here you go.
Yeah, the water. It's like if John has to scoot away for a second, we know why.
Yeah, it's a lot of peeing at night, which is annoying too. I don't
Yeah.
mind peeing during the day, but being a public figure, so to speak, or talking about it, I guess that's why you talk about it, because you can't bitch out on it, pardon my French, if you're like telling people about it on social media.
Yeah, no, I said it on my podcast. I'm like, now I cannot fail.
Yeah. So my friend was doing that, and then I've had other folks I've known that have done it, you and this woman Echo. But I was like, I don't know that I'll make the 2 workouts a priority. I got so much other stuff going on right now. So I thought, oh, well, what if I do this variation instead of 75 hard, which is 2 workouts? It's 75 hard and holy, which is 1 45-minute workout of your body and 1 45 workout of your spirit. That could be reading the Bible. It could be meditating. It could be breath work, yoga. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Christian thing. And so, yeah, I'm on day 43 or 44 now. I had to start over once because I'm doing paleo. And 7 days in, I was hanging out with Curtis Stone. He was coming in from the airport. He's like, hey, you want me to pick up Chipotle? I was like, yeah, sure. And I told him what I normally order, which had rice. And then when we got it, we were just hanging out, excited to see each other. I just ate the rice. And then after I finished it, I could feel my face getting warm, because I do it causes inflammation. I probably need to do a liver detox. But then I was like, oh shit, I just ate a whole thing of rice. So I had to start over. But anyway, other than that, I'm doing good.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one time I almost forgot to read, which is the easiest part for me, is reading, because I do that every day anyway. And I go to bed and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And I get back up. I was like, I am not losing because I didn't read. And one time because in the challenge, you have to post a picture. You have to take a picture. I didn't take the picture. I had to get back out of bed and take a picture. And I was like, okay, I did it. I'm glad I remembered, because that's even worse than eating wrong. Like, I didn't take a stupid picture.
Yeah, ours is just a daily reflection.
Yeah,
but the reading is definitely something that works in towards the end of the day. I read all the time anyway, but on a busy day, that's one of those that's like, I got to get that in at the end of the day for sure. So I'll be staying up late even though I'm tired. But yeah, above all else, it's to cultivate discipline. If people want to join us, you can sign up. There's like 75 people that are doing it together in a Telegram group, a private Telegram group. And you can sign up for free at freedomfamilyfellowship.com/75. freedomfamilyfellowship.com/75. And one of the most helpful parts is not drinking or taking gummies. I quit Kratom a while back. It wasn't serving me. I wasn't fully feeling, but I never realized how dependent I was on gummies until I stopped taking them. I don't even take a whole lot of cannabis gummies, usually just a little nibble. I'll take a few nibbles starting at like 2 o'clock during the day. helps me take the edge off and get through the rest of the day. But once I stopped taking them, and now I have no crutch whatsoever, just had to feel everything fully, it's definitely been transformational and forced me to like dive deeper with my spiritual side and self-reflection and breathing if I'm having some uncomfortable emotions and stuff.
Yeah, uncomfortable emotions will happen.
They happen, but most of us distract ourselves or numb them. I tell you what, I sure have missed booze on numerous occasions. I like booze. Me and booze get along well. Sometimes when I get a little too drunk, I'm a bit obnoxious. And then the next morning, I wake up feeling like slightly embarrassed. Like, was I just a total ass last night? But thankfully, we have fun, of course. I don't turn into a jerk. But I think it's been really powerful to not have booze, because there would have been many stressful times in the past couple months that I would have turned to booze.
Yeah, that can be a big lesson, and how to have fun without it.
That has been something I've had to learn for sure. Yeah. The first time I went to a little dinner party, I was like, this is going to be weird, but it was fine.
Yeah, nobody cares.
It's great.
Although I will say, I was at my dad's senior living center, and they serve dinner restaurant style there, so it's more like you're at a restaurant. And one of the guys was just horrified that I wasn't drinking wine. No, really, I'll give you some. I'm like, no, really, I just got off an airplane. I don't need to dehydrate myself further. And yeah, he kept pushing. But so that must be generational, because in our generation, I think it's just, I mean, you're younger than I am, but still, I think it's just like, no, you don't push that on people because that's uncool.
Well, more and more nowadays, it's less of a thing, the drinking. And there's a lot of sober stuff, and there's like sober bars and stuff. So yeah, I think that's one of those shifts. Still has a place, of course, but just depends on the group or the culture.
Okay, so talk to me. So I said we're going to talk about CBDCs. Are we going to stop CBDCs from coming, John Bush?
No, I think it's inevitable that central bank digital currencies will be fully implemented across the globe. I just did this CBDC threat report where I examined the state of the CBDC rollout in the United States, Canada, the UK, the European Union, and Australia. And they are all advancing, some faster than others. I would say the United States is far ahead of the pack. I'll share why. And then the European Union behind it. But it is, I believe, inevitable that this is going to be implemented. I used to say that the only thing that could stop it is some mass populist revolt, like a huge political movement that actually had leverage, unlike our freedom movement or the Libertarian Party. Although the freedom movement is seeming to like shift the culture, and the politics are having to respond, but the entirety of all the political response is like a psyoped, like a double agent kind of vibe. Like there's a huge uprising of people that are waking up and see government and corporate cronyism for what it is. And the predator class is like, well, how can we leverage that? And that's what we see with Donald Trump and his little faction. But I don't think there's going to be some mass political uprising. I think slowly but surely it's going to be implemented. I think it's going to be relatively easy for the masses to accept it, because it's simply going to bring about greater convenience. If the people are slow to accept it, they're not even going to have a choice, really. Much of the behavior is not going to change on the surface as far as swiping a card. If you go to any Whole Foods, they already have these palm payments with the Amazon, which is creepy and freaky. So that's all going to be moving forward no matter what. People are going to willingly accept it because it'll make life easier for them. What is going to be different, however, is greater surveillance, greater censorability, and the most worrisome aspect is the programmability of CBDCs, which will enable the predator class to socially engineer the public and to get them to do things and engage in behaviors that they normally would not have done were it not for something costing more, something costing less, them not being able to purchase goods and services when they're outside of their 15-minute city district, not being able to buy a flight, or the flight is exorbitantly expensive because you've exceeded your carbon output for the month. Those are the types of programs that they're going to be inflicting upon people. And I do believe there'll be a simultaneous gradual elimination of cash, which is more private. It's better to use cash than your cards and such, but it's still part of the beast system and props up the war dollar. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, it is going to happen for sure.
Tori says, I like how John calls them the predator class. It's not necessarily one group that are predators.
I got that from Derek Bros, actually.
Yep.
That's what he calls it. And I adopted it. We adopt a lot of each other's little phrases.
Well, I stopped worrying about who it is, too. There was a point where people are like, let's talk about who it is. Who's doing this? I'm like, does it matter? Does it really matter? And would the people we find really be the people doing it? Don't know.
Yeah, they're not. There's a deeper level, the guys that are in control. We're not to know. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who they are. What matters, it doesn't even matter. There's no need to obsess over their agenda, the minutia and the details of it. If we understand their strategy, then we can plan around it, under it, over it, opt out of it. And what their strategy is, which was really revealed during COVID very clearly, is to make life difficult for people in order to pressure them to do things they wouldn't normally have done. And that's what I believe the CBDCs are going to be used for.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a hard question about CBDCs now. What are the good things about a CBDC?
Good things for
you and me.
For us.
Yeah.
Well,
it's a hard question, I know.
So this, like I said earlier, the CBDCs in effect aren't going to be very different. So I'll answer the question, but first let me paint the picture of like what's going on here in the US. So in the US, the CBDC system, I haven't done any content with old Spirko in a while, but him and I have been butting heads. I think I'm not going to talk smack. It's all love and respect, of course.
We should totally have a debate between you guys, like a reasoned debate.
I'd love to. I'd love to. He's just such a number go up Bitcoin maximalist guy, and now he's sharing like CBDCs aren't what. There's not a CBD. The stable coins aren't a CBDC thing. And it's like it's so obvious what's happening with the stable coins, but. So it's not going to be a big change because what's taking place in the United States, we call the CBDC sneak attack. And so Trump shared that we're not going to pursue CBDCs. He signed this executive order. But in reality, what's taking place and why the CBDC agenda is dramatically accelerated here in the United States is because stable coins, which is a cryptocurrency that's pegged to the US dollar, one tether, that's the most popular one, equals $1 US, one USDC equals $1 US. These rails, the payment rails for the stable coin infrastructure already exists. It's already set up. It's already being used globally. And this legislation that just passed, the Genius Act, now regulates these stable coins, brings them under the existing Know Your Customer legislation and requirements, which is all part of the Bank Secrecy Act. That's what requires folks to show a driver's license when they open a bank account or when they sign up on a Bitcoin exchange. Now stable coins, CBDCs, interchangeable, they are going to be required to have all of these checks. They also have a requirement for a one-to-one backing, most often in treasury notes. So these stable coins and the increasing demand for stable coins is now propping up US debt that finances foreign wars of aggression and keeps this Fugazi dollar US government nonsense train just continuously running instead of screeching to a halt because you can't continue the dog and pony show inevitably. But now they found a new way to inject more debt into the system. And so what's going to happen essentially, banks are now allowed and they're regulated to use stable coins. And so these banks are going to either create their own stable coins or they're going to adopt the existing stable coin infrastructure, which, to answer your question in a long way, one of the convenient things, well, that will be instead of doing an ACH transfer that takes 1 to 2 business days, sometimes 3 business days to clear, I'll be able to send money to my affiliates at Live Free Academy in almost instantly, I would guess. And so, but one more point. CBDCs, and we're like freedom people, and I'm the anti-CBDC guy. We'll never use CBDCs. Like I said, it's just going to be its transition over. You'll still swipe the card. You'll still log into your online banking with the checking account and routing number. Eventually, it might be a username or one single number. It'll probably be like some convenient thing that underneath it is a public address of sorts, or the banks will just manage that on your behalf because they'll actually be custodying your stable coins and your Bitcoin here soon, which is another thing Jack will celebrate. But now it's like the entire Bitcoin experiment, not the entire one, because Monero and all these other privacy coins are a offset of the Bitcoin experiment, the cryptocurrency, peer-to-peer cash, blockchain experiment, decentralized. But the Bitcoin thing has just been completely psyoped into the legacy financial system. And it's no longer a peer-to-peer electronic cash, a means of trading outside the system, a means of competing with the dollar. In fact, now it's being leveraged by the Trump administration to help prop up the dollar and the United States government. And it's now a banking instrument. And so a lot of folks think like, well, we're actually infecting the government and the banking system, and it's Bitcoin that's going to win. That's that same thing. You can stare into the abyss long enough, it starts to stare back. I think it's just the other way around. We said the same thing in the early Ron Paul movement. We're going to take over the Republican Party and turn it into a constitutionalist libertarian thing. Nah, most of those people got psyoped and taken over by the Republican Party, watering down their message. And now they're just the same as Ted Cruz or any other dork Congress critter. But long answer short, it will be more convenient. Oh, and the point I was going to make is we're probably still going to use CBDCs. We just need to draw our line in the sand where if they require, in order to continue using the system, now they're going to require us to get a shot, for example. So if my mortgage is converted into CBDCs and my bank account is CBDCs on the back end, and I have automatic payments going to the mortgage company and it's CBDCs, I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to pay my mortgage because it's a CBDC. I have equity in this house. My kids are growing up in this house. We have a nice homestead thing going. I'm not going to just like throw that away. But the moment that they say, now that we have you completely in the system, which they don't have me or us because we have a network, we have barter, we trade outside the system with alternative currencies. But for something like a home, they're not going to accept silver or Monero. Maybe they'll accept Bitcoin, which would be nice. Guess there's that. I'll give Jack that. But I'm not going to like give up the mortgage. But if the moment that they say, in order to use this system and maintain your mortgage, because your mortgage needs to use this system, you got to take a shot. That's when it's like, nope, I'm squatting up. You're going to have to kick me out of this house. I'm willing to be in honor and honor my my contract with you guys that I'll pay you. But now that there's all this weird stuff attached to it that you guys may not even know about or care about, I'm not going to engage in that. Take me out of the system. Thankfully, I've opted out in large part, and I can fully lean into the counter economy.
Yeah, so that goes to so the reason I asked you the good things about the CBDC is like the convenience of it is going to go up, I think, compared to our current financial banking system, which is a pain in the neck. You are not wrong that they will not add additional weirdnesses, though. Like it's if you've been paying attention in the last decade, it is so much harder to open a bank account now than a decade ago. They do all sorts of analysis and examination of your personal details. You have to prove you're you in multiple ways. And because of that, it's harder to get a bank account. Like, get this document. I don't even know where that document is. You know, those sorts of things. And if you already have a relationship with a bank, you have not noticed this happened because you already had that relationship. But when you go to a new bank, it's kind of like a proctology exam. I'm showing things I don't want to show. And that's been creeping in because they're trying to, you know, the anti-money laundering stuff, right? But
Yeah.
pair that with a CBDC, and there's, more of that will be demanded. I think more transparency, and then they can see what you're spending your money on, and then make decisions based on what you're spending your money on. Like, what if veganism is the path of the future, and I'm a carnivore? They will see me buying my meat. Well, they won't see me buying my meat because I buy it differently than that. But
That's what
that
it's
is
all
the big-
about.
Yeah. So you have a program that shows people how to opt out, how to set themselves up to have more flexibility. Because I will say this, during COVID, the best place to be was a business owner responsible for your own income. So that when regulations came down about, they never just said you have to do this thing. They said we'll pull government contracts, or if you have more than this number of employees, you have to require it. Or if you're in this profession, you have to get it to stay licensed in this profession. So when those sorts of things came down, if you were responsible for your own income, you were like, okay, but not here. Like that, they ran into that boundary. What sorts of things can people do to hedge?
Yeah, so this is a lot of what we'll teach in the upcoming CBDC opt-out challenge. It goes live August 12th. And essentially the idea is for folks to get real honest with the areas in which they're dependent on what I like to call the beast system. So most definitely there will be an effort and an attempt to coerce you, manipulate you, socially engineer you into doing things that you normally wouldn't have done, like taking the shot, for example. And so what we need to do is begin to meet our wants and needs through outside the system mechanisms. So one of the most important things, and one thing too, I teach what I call the inside outside strategy, because there's a lot of folks that are watching that aren't, that have a mortgage, or they have a 401k, or they're living off of Social Security. And so I'm not advocating you just abandon all of that and everything that you worked for, but you do need to begin trading and buying goods and services outside the system, because when the day comes that you're pressured into making a decision on a shot or compliance with this, or you can't purchase ammo because of what you posted online, it's all tied together in this massive system and tracked with your digital ID. And if you do try to step out of line, then we're going to shut you out of the banking system. You won't be in a position where you're going to lose everything, or you're going to have to be on the streets or not be able to feed your family. So we teach the inside outside strategy. You don't have to let go of your inside the system life, but you do need to begin building outside of the system. So if you're faced with that difficult decision, you can transition all the way out. Another key piece that we teach, it's called keep the current flowing. So when I think about currency, I think about energy flow, just like the word current. In fact, money is an exchange of value, energy. And a lot of people that have excess money, excess value compared to what their expenses are, they are starting to build wealth, and they store that value with money, with Bitcoin, with gold, with land, with dollars. And so what the predator class aims to do is to stop the flow between you and me, between sender and receiver, between seller and buyer, between Nicole and John. So we can flow each other right now with relative ease. And what they want to do is stop that flow, or at least control the flow, or put conditions on the flow. And so what I teach in the CBDC opt-out plan is how to keep the flow going by going around, over, underneath. And the way that we keep the current flowing is with alternative currencies. And I don't just teach cryptocurrency. There's a large emphasis on precious metals, which I recently went to a Mennonite farmers market, and I convinced the Mennonite guys at the register, it was an analog little register, to sell me $52 worth of vegetables using a silver ounce Walking Liberty that was worth about $40, and then a Kennedy $50, 90% silver, any $50, quarter, dime, dollar coin before 1964. 1964 earlier was actually 90% silver. So one of the Kennedy $50 was about $15 at the time. So I paid with a silver ounce and a Kennedy $50. They were all excited about it. So we learned precious metals. Also, barter's classic. Can't go wrong with barter. In fact, we should probably seek barter as the first mechanism of exchange. But when there's not a match between wants and needs, then we could go to precious metals or we can go to crypto. So for the folks that are all overwhelmed by crypto still, no worries. I do think that you should push yourself to learn it, though. But we also teach about precious metals and barter as well, and how to find other people and how to offer goods and services on your end.
Yeah, barter is like the lowest barrier to entry. And I had a guy over here because we're opening up the hauler with some rentals, and I have a glamper and I needed the place to put it. So we needed to make the pad. So he came over with his skid steer and did that work. And he's like, well, you can pay me $100 an hour or we can barter. And I said, what do you want? He goes, I don't know, Nicole. And he did the work and he left. And so now I got to follow back up and say, okay, like, do you want lots of coffee? Do you want to come to one of my events? I have a pretty cool cheese class coming up on the 23rd, right?
Yeah.
That's about the same amount for 3 hours of work. So we'll see. We'll see what he does. But that's super easy to do one-to-one as long as you don't have 50,000 people you're trying to barter with. And that's where like a digital currency or a different way of tracking it makes more sense.
Yep. Yeah, there's a place for it, and a one-to-one if there's a match with wants and needs. Or you could say, well, I have a friend that has a chicken farm and they're constantly slaughtering the chickens, the broilers, and they're actually in need of my coffee. And you expressed to me while we were hanging out, you're in need of some chicken meat. So I'm going to trade them with my coffee to get the chicken meat for you. But that's where money comes into play, of course. And I'm a big fan of Monero. Monero, I believe, is the best tool for trading outside the system online because it's private. Many in this network will point to Lightning Network, but unfortunately, which is private also, until you bring it back into Bitcoin. The Bitcoin blockchain is transparent. But unfortunately, most of the platforms that you use to set up Lightning Network, they're not wallets, they're just apps. And it's not a wallet where you control your Lightning Network tokens. It's basically an account where they control it. They're not non-custodial. And that's a problem for me. I also don't see how Lightning Network scales. But anyway, Monero is my favorite for trading outside the system. Bitcoin still has a purpose too, of course. But at the end of the day, you got to build those human relationships. We can just theorize and here's what you should do, but you got to know people. You got to know how to find people. You got to use the existing directories. You got to tap into an existing network. And that's why the community piece is so important also.
Yeah, we're doing it more on a tangible level here where the Holler Homestead, the Holler Hub project is making it a hub of learning and with rentals. And we're going to get some land and have stewards buy their piece of land. They will own their piece of land. But then, we always have people flowing through here anyway. So I just decided to make it easier. And you know what came up, John, immediately that we need to do? I know so many farmers here. A buying club. So, yeah. So you get and then I talked to another guy in the state. He does the agorist community in Chattanooga. And they said, what I want to do is pre-order and have people pick up rather than have to stock a bunch of stuff like a grocery store. He's like, yep, that's what we came to as well. So you know how many gallons of milk you need each week and that sort of thing. So as that develops, it turns into a counter economy where we're tapping into each other's productive businesses, but also because the system is how the system is, money is exchanged when money needs to be exchanged. That's how I found AirBTC, by the way, because it was like, well, we could take sats if we want.
Heck yeah.
So, guys, if you're interested in the challenge that John talked about, it starts August 12th, and it's cbdoptout.com. I'm sorry, cbdcoptout.com. cbdcoptout.com. And it's a 3-day online course you can take. There are 2 levels. One level gives you live access. The second level, you get recordings, right?
Yep. And you get a 4th VIP day where I just do an open Q&A empowerment session.
Okay, cool. So Tori's got this question. I don't have any digital currency at all. If these banks all have their own currency, that just seems like a whole lot of stuff to keep track of. So
Okay.
maybe talk a little bit, because that's going back to the banks can now issue their own stablecoin thing. And then if I have 3 banks, I have 3 different stable coins. I have Bank of America stable coin, Chase stable coin, and it starts turning into a whole mess.
Sure.
Does it?
So not necessarily. One thing real quick, you should consider for this buying club creating a private membership association. It would be perfect use case for a PMA. But no, so each one of these stablecoin projects and each one of these central bank digital currencies across the globe, so on a national level and on a local bank level, they are all required. The governments aren't necessarily required to participate with one another, but they are. They're all required to, and they're all required in choosing to make them all interoperable. So it's not necessarily the case that you'll have JP Morgan coin. It's that you'll still see $1,234 in your online banking app. But when you send it over to the Wells Fargo account that your friend has, then you won't really see what's taking place on the back end. And just like there's bridges and swaps in the cryptocurrency space, you can send one token JP Morgan coin to the other person's bank account / wallet, and now you don't see anything. It's all going to be seamless. And then the United States stablecoin system, which will be Tether, or my friend Aaron Day believes that one of the big banks like JP Morgan is going to acquire Tether, and then that's going to become the de facto. And there's going to be different competing stablecoin systems and rails, but they're all there's going to be a couple that reign supreme, and then that'll likely be what smaller banks utilize. And again, they'll all be interoperable on the back end, and the new CBDC Genius Act legislation requires it all to start working on how it will be integrated and such. One other point, interestingly enough, it's actually the MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that's a key institution, an organization that is aiding in the interoperability of most of the foreign governments' CBDC programs. This MIT lab also is responsible for a lot of Bitcoin and Lightning Network development. And one of the key figures, this guy Ito in this MIT lab, is not only working on Bitcoin Lightning Network development, he's also working on Project Hamilton and other CBDC pilot programs and projects. So there's a nexus there that's a little bit funny and doesn't look good to any discerning mind that may want to peel a layer back and look a little bit deeper. Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've freaked everybody out about total government control, how do you go to your out of the fear place?
Well, the beauty of it is, so this is all, like when COVID happened, we had the opportunity to show up. We have the choice to show up as a victim. I can't believe this is happening. The government's so powerful. They're locking us down. They made me lose my job. Right. And I have empathy for anybody that was put in a difficult position, or they saw their family get the shot, or maybe somebody listening had to get the shot. But you can see it from a place of victimhood, or you can see it from a place of empowerment. I see what's taking place right now. I'm going to choose to leverage this opportunity in order to accelerate my exit and build goals. So that's exactly what's taking place right now. We already knew that the dollar is a total fugazi. It's a debt instrument. It's used to finance these stupid social programs and all this government nonsense. Not only that, it's used to finance foreign wars of aggression, which are really, really, really ugly, what's taking place right now, especially in Gaza. And the United States is most definitely funding all of that. There goes the YouTube stream. And so that's not cool. So we already wanted to avoid using this stupid currency that props up it's like funding our own oppression every time we give it our energy and use it. But now it's like, hey, everybody, if you don't accelerate your effort to opt out, you're going to be caught in an even more difficult situation. So let's just take this as an opportunity, take advantage of the opportunity. There's a little bit of pressure, there's a little bit of heat, there's a little bit of push, but maybe that's the push that we needed to take this seriously. And so there's always a solution. I break it down for 3 days in the CBDC opt-out challenge. The live pass is less than $100 to join. I want to make it as accessible as possible. The VIP pass, if you can't make it live, August 12th through the 14th, just a little bit more. You get lifetime access to the replays. But we're going to teach you a lot of the strategies that Nicole is already just naturally employing. Go out, meet people, build relationships, have something to offer to other people. It doesn't have to be a full-on entrepreneurial business you start, but you got to have some kind of good, some kind of service. Quick tip, one simple thing that folks can do is purchase with dollars goods that are in high demand for other freedom people, like ammo, like, I don't know what the law is with selling ammo. I think it's probably not that big of a deal to sell ammunition
Depends
privately.
on the state.
Yeah, it depends on the state. So check your laws there.
New York,
ammo.
don't do this.
Forget ammo. Leave ammo out. Don't want anybody to make any mistakes unless you already know the law. Purchase storable food. Purchase farm equipment. Purchase seeds, whatever it may be. And then turn around and sell that to freedom people for alternative currency. This is how you can actually acquire cryptocurrency without having to scan your driver's license. Just simple things like that. Figure out some little side hustle, candles, soap, seeds. Beef share, whatever it may be. Be a connector, be a networker. And then you just got to build relationships. You got to offer something of value. You got to acquire alternative currencies, ideally by exchanging them for your own goods or services that you offer. Or by buying them on peer-to-peer online marketplaces. We'll show you how to do that in the challenge. And then you got to use those alternative currencies. Really, that's what it's all about. But above all else, you got to have courage and confidence. And, this is happening. And fear is a powerful motivator. So we'll definitely shoot you straight and not downplay what's really taking place, the world that we really find ourselves in. But at the end of the day, the more you believe in yourself, the more you believe in the power of a tight-knit community, the better off you will be. And ultimately, we're all going to be okay, but we do have to take action. You're not going to be okay if you just watch and share articles and watch YouTube videos. You got to take action. You had to take responsibility for creating a life of freedom. And so leverage this opportunity and the fact that these CBDC systems are coming in at breakneck speed. Let it build some momentum in your life so you can create a life that's in alignment with your values, which is what we ought to be doing anyway.
I always like to say freedom ain't hard in that it's not complex. And a lot of times that it's so simple that people have a hard time wrapping their brain around how simple freedom is. But it also ain't easy because you have to do something every day for your freedom. That's one of the things that my 3 things method that I like is freedom's built into my life vision, right? So then if I do one thing on the freedom side every day, it doesn't have to be a big thing. That adds up better than doing a major freedom overhaul over a single day. Just doing that one thing. And it's kind of like exercise. If you exercise every single day, like I get up and I walk the dogs with a weighted vest now, that makes a better impact on me than, taking that hike for 8 miles up to Virgin Falls or whatever. Not that I would trade the hike because that's a really beautiful hike, but it's that consistency that matters. And I think that matters in building freedom too.
For sure. It's all about habits. Habits are everything. Habits actually create the life. whether healthy habits or unhealthy habits. So yeah, baby steps. It doesn't have to, and that's what we teach too. It's like a spectrum. On one side, you have total freedom, agorist, totally outside the system. On the other side, you have total dependence. Like all my income comes from Social Security and all my food comes from the grocery store. And I'm using big tech and Gmail for everything. The idea isn't like, you better do everything you can tonight and this week to get to total agorism. No, it's like, what baby steps can I start taking? First of all, it's come up with a plan and be methodical and strategic about it. And that plan can be EOS, the entrepreneurial operating system, teaches us to have a 10-year vision. What's my life going to be like in 10 years? You don't have to dial in the specifics on that. A 3-year plan, no, a 3-year picture of what life will be like in 3 years, and a 1-year plan. And then from there, you break it down into quarterly goals. But either way, the idea is to just start moving, inching, maybe yarding, feeding towards greater freedom. Go easy on yourself. The last thing that you want to do is make a big decision like, I have a bunch of money in a 401k, or I have this rental property, or I'm going to pack up my house and move, or whatever. Don't make a decision from a place of fear. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to make decisions from a place of, this is what I want my life to be like in the future. And is this decision in alignment with creating that life? Yes, let me start moving forward towards it and see what it will take to get there. No, maybe I should consider not doing it and given a good old-fashioned coal-powered no towards this. And that's what it's all about. Don't get overwhelmed. It's all good. We're going to be okay. It's a frog in the boiling pot gradualism, although it does accelerate when they like drop a false flag. COVID accelerated a lot of stuff. 9/11 accelerated a lot of stuff. Banking crises, cyber attacks will accelerate. War accelerates a lot of stuff. But just have a plan, start working that plan. And above all else, find other people that are on the same wavelength, connect with them, reciprocally provide value to them. The more value you provide for other people, the more value that will come back your way. This is how we ought to live anyway.
Yeah. Well, and then you have the other thing you work on, which is sort of the land trust private membership association side of the world, which is a whole different problem you're solving. So what problem are you, it's kind of the same problem, but what problem are you solving by helping people go into the private realm? And what does that even mean?
Yep. So this is actually something that I'm going to be diving deeper with. There was somebody that I was partnering with to get this message and strategy out there. I'm no longer going to be working with them, and I'm going to be diving into it with myself and a team. But essentially, you got two worlds. One is the public realm, or the matrix, or man-made law. And the other is the private realm that's aligned with divine law or God's law. The public realm in the matrix is whenever you have to ask government for permission, or you create an LLC, a limited liability company, or you get a license to do massage or to sell poultry to your neighbors. Whenever you voluntarily opt in to this matrix, you contractually oblige yourself to meet A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P requirements, and more requirements being added every day. You also require yourself to follow the statutes and all those rules. You're now in the man-made jurisdiction in the public realm. Well, if you never choose to enter into that space, and instead of creating an LLC in order to manage people and have agreements amongst yourselves, you create a private membership association. You're now in the private realm, and you're choosing to align not with man-made law, but with God's law or divine law. What do we mean by that? Well, I shared it earlier. The two most important commandments: love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. The next one is love your neighbor like you love yourself. That's basically all it is. Act with honor and be good to other people and honor your word. And we're now operating in agreement amongst ourselves in this world, right? So there's different frameworks that can be used. The Private Membership Association, a great way to illustrate that. And essentially, Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution basically states that the government cannot pass any laws or create rules that would go against private contracts between two willing parties. So if Nicole and I get together, or Nicole and other people get together and they're like, we are going to launch this food co-op, and here are the rules of engagement. We're all going to agree that we're going to charge reasonable prices. We're all going to agree that whenever there's a dispute amongst us, we are going to go to this group of 3 people in order to help us resolve that dispute. And we're going to oblige ourselves to do whatever they decide to do as a dispute mechanism system. And we are all going to commit to not bring one another or this organization into the public jurisdiction via a lawsuit or by calling any bureaucrats. And we're all going to reach that common agreement amongst ourselves. We're going to sign off on it. Well, this is a private agreement, and the government's actually prohibited from doing anything that goes against that private agreement. This has been litigated. This has been enshrined in court precedent. The only exception is if your behavior that you're engaging in through this private contract is creating some urgent public, clear and present public danger to other people, which we're not doing, you know? So that's what the private realm is all about. A non-statutory common law trust is one instrument that's been recognized since British common law. That's where you can hold resources, land, food, gold, a business in a trust. Then you have a private membership association, which is like, we're going to have agreements amongst ourselves privately. We're going to have a board of directors that follows bylaws, and we're all going to sign this private membership association agreement, holding ourselves to a higher standard of honor than most other people hold themselves to. That's all private. That's all enshrined and protected. And if you want to take it a step further, if you do all of this from a spiritual place, actually create a church, and you can have a 508c1a church, that's a piece of the tax code, that creates a mandatory exception from income tax. Not an exemption that you have to apply for like a 501c3, rather an exception. There's an exception to the rule for someone or a group of people operating a church. There's certain qualities of a church. There's no law that says what a church is, but the IRS has laid out 14 qualities of a church, and court rulings have referenced those, saying some of them are more important than others. You don't have to meet all 14 criteria, but you should have a congregation, a group of people that meets regularly. You should have a recognized creed and form of worship. You should have an ecclesiastical government, so a body of people that are making decisions on behalf of the church. But if you're doing a lot of that kind of stuff and you're not faking it, you're actually, have a spiritual purpose, like we're going to bring together God's people to steward God's green earth and share in its bounty as a freedom movement and group of people here in Tennessee. That sounds pretty damn spiritual to me. Maybe when you gather together to do your swap, you just bless the food. We're gathered here today. This is our weekly swap where we pick up the food. We just want to say a quick blessing. We want to thank God for giving us this opportunity to connect with one another. Maybe someone shares some scripture. Maybe someone shares something about permaculture, which is also about the earth and living in alignment with nature and harmony. It doesn't necessarily have to be Christian, although if you're a bunch of Christians, then it will be Christian. So that's some cool little structure. We call it the Trinity framework, where you can actually really embody this private realm thing and have a bridge. You can set up a bank account. We have a bank account, and we never filed for any government certificate of formation or anything. And it's actually pretty cool. So something that I'm going to be leaning into more and more. I just need to carve out the time to be able to focus. But I've definitely been studying it intensely for the past several months and before these past couple years, but more so recently just went on a deep dive. I think it's a powerful tool for people to use.
And that's a preview of something to come that is not being announced yet, correct?
Yes, something in Tennessee.
Something happening sometime later than now. So
Something
we'll
really cool.
we'll keep you guys informed as that develops. So
Yeah.
well, John, any last words before we wrap today?
I just want to encourage people to take action. And, I know a lot of times people watch and they're like, well, you guys have been doing it for so long, or y'all just are so confident, or every time I try to raise livestock, I just mess it up or whatever. You just got to let go of all that and just take action. Experience is the greatest teacher. I shared earlier, we got our first 8 quail and we're all excited, and 6 of them have died in like 6 months. That's like a quail a month on average. They're damn hard to we've been struggling to keep them alive. Maybe they're not hard, but it's definitely been challenging for us. But are we going to be like, we're not cut out for this, we'll just get rid of all the duck and all the birds and we're done? No, it's just like, wow, maybe we should not raise quail. Or you could say, like, maybe I need to get some more literature and watch more videos, and the guy that gave us the quail, let's bring him over to teach us how to do it better. A couple of the times they got out and one of our little silly dogs killed them. One of them was just dead. I think it might have been heat exhaustion, but they do well in the Texas heat, and we got a fan pointed on them and they weren't in the direct sun. But either way, my point is, I mess up all the time. If you walk through our garden right now, you'll see a bunch of dried out tomatoes, and even the red tomatoes that are ripe, they haven't been watered as much and they're a little bit chewy. We do have some good plants coming up in another garden bed.
Sun-dried tomatoes. That's awesome.
Oh, there you go. Now we're talking. I didn't even think about that. Sweet. It changes everything. So I just want to encourage people to just try, just do, act, and you'll get wiser, you'll get better at it. And it's not like a marathon. It is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, and we're all in this together. And thanks for having me on your show.
No, I appreciate it. And guys, don't forget to get that break. I know both John and I burn it at both ends. And I think both he and I were struck by how we don't serve those around us when we burn at both ends. The most important people around us in the last year. And we've both gone through some humbling experiences in relationships with realizing that you just can't assume that people are going to always support you if you don't treat them well. And the only way we do that is by giving ourselves space. So even if you're hearing about CBDCs or worried about your quail dying, or I raised rabbits for a year that didn't reproduce because I was overfeeding them, John. So just FYI, you can mess up rabbits too. So it's all part of the journey. And if you have an open heart and an open mind and you can learn, that's what's important. And then start integrating those things into your life for realsies. Thanks for being on today, John. Guys, don't forget, he does have the CBDC optout.com challenge starting August 12th. There'll be a link. There's already a link in the description of the show, so check that out. And hopefully we'll catch up with John again soon when he has this other thing that is not official yet in Tennessee, maybe happening.
Yes.
All right.
I'll be spending more time in Tennessee, actually, as time goes by. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Nicole.
Make it a great week.
Bye.